Hello again, everyone. Ambassador Terry here, along with my amazing co host, behavioral scientist Jenny Langren, and we're going to talk about self sabotage and imposter syndrome. Do they go together? A lot of times they do because they intermix on a quite easy basis. We're going to have a great day today, Jenny.
Yes. Oh, goodness, Terry, our limiting beliefs can so easily hold us back from truly exploring our abilities in business and life. So I'm so excited to hear what our special guests have to share from their own story and how they work with their clients on this matter. So looking forward to this conversation.
I am too. And my first guest is a dear, dear friend, an amazing professional in the fuel business from clear over in way Eastern Europe, Central Asia. You can't get farther away from me, Lydia Ballaghan Wilson. Welcome, my dearest friend. I'm so glad that you can make this event.
Thank you so much, Ambassador.
I am excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me, and lovely to see you, Jenny. I know the
Lovely to
duo
see
of you
you.
always make an amazing topic, and it's not an easy one, so good luck to you both.
Well, thank you
Well,
very much.
Lydia, the guest makes the party. So what's your thoughts on imposter syndrome and self-sabotage?
The thing about those two behaviors is they both stem from what has been fed into us, either by people who we trust over the years or things that we've mimicked or imitated from the people around us. We are a function and a product of our experiences over the years. And it's really, really disappointing when the people who should know better, who should love us better, are the ones who end up creating this mindset and killing us gradually with pain. And we don't even know that to the point where you believe it. And the person you think is coming from a place of love. And I know, Jenny, you've covered that before in one of your talks about toxic love, was it that you called it? And when you don't even know that you're in a toxic relationship and you think that is what love is. And I know, Ambassador, you're an author in this space. So what do I think about it is you even need to identify it. You might need help identifying it. You might need help recognizing it. And it starts from when you set goals for yourself, but you're unable to achieve it. I would say those are the first things you start looking at is why is that? Is it I'm not good enough? And you start doubting yourself, you start doubting your ability. And the self sabotage one is an interesting one where you're trying. It's kind of like weight loss, right? A lot of people start the year wanting to lose weight, and then they get to a point where they just give up because the pounds are not coming off as fast as they come on. And if you have that type of mindset shift, that is kind of like what self sabotage do. And it's because you want that quick, instant result, it becomes a big problem. And I would say that you really, really need to either you go to a therapist. Some people need as far as going to a therapist to get it changed and get it identified and get it and get it and get support for it. And people like yourselves, Jenny and Ambassador, who have been authors in this place and coaches in this place, really help people. They come to you for to solve what problem, and you easily help them to identify it. So I think even having courage is very, very important in this space. And then those of us who surround, we should also help others to identify it. It's so important. It's so vital that I cannot overemphasize how just being surrounded in a situation where it's clearly defined and making the small habits, the small gains, making achievable goals.
Mm,
In my work, we call it SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And we call them like
mm,
SMART goals. And having that will just give you a sense of accomplishment, but it's a gradual process. as you say, healing. It's a healing of the mind, and it takes time. So if you're around people who have this, you need to be patient with them. They self-sabotage. They know what to do, but they're not doing it because they've been told they can't succeed. They're going to fail anyway. So what's the point of staying?
Yeah. Lydia, this brings up, that image of like the devil and the angel on our shoulders?
True.
That some of us just keep hearing the voices of people who used to be part of our story. And sometimes those people aren't really in our lives anymore. But it is as if we keep using the same words, and we keep, the abuse going by self-abusing. And we keep hearing those voices. And I love coming to that point in, working with a client and asking them, like, who is that voice? Whose is that voice that you're truly hearing? So what would be your message? How can we help our people identify like who they're truly listening to and help them hear their own voice expanding instead?
The smallest and easiest thing is asking individuals, what did you do for you today? Because more often than not, people who self-sabotage and people who are imposter syndrome are pleasers. They're people pleasers. They want validation from others. And you need to be confident in yourself. You need to be happy in yourself. But to help people like that, you need to start small, because this is a huge thing that has built over the years. So you really want to help them to identify, what did you do for you? And it might be as simple as, I went for a walk. Okay, when you went for a walk, what were you listening to? What were you doing in that walk? Or I read a book. Okay, what did you read? Why were you reading the book? And the moment you start getting a sense that they're doing it to be validated by others rather than for themselves, you need to just stop it. Oh, I'm reading the book because my boss said it's no, 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 no. Just time out. You should read the book because it makes you feel, what message did you take away? If no one was watching and no one had to listen, what is the good thing you will still take away from that book? But it takes experience from the likes of yourselves, from people who have been through it sometimes, to help people out. And there are tools out there. But what I would say is, help people get back their voice, and even positive affirmation. Why do you want this job? When I have young people come to me and I go, why do you want this job? And if they're telling me why other people tell them to want the job, that is usually a red flag. Because one day you're going to wake up, you may not enjoy that job. Work comes with challenges and you might want to quit. But if you're doing it for you, you're enjoying it. Like both of you enjoy this so much. No one has to force you to do this all the time. And I personally enjoy it as well. So I make the time for it. So I would say, I think I've said a few things as well, but it's most important that we make people feel valued. And as they've heard several times, they couldn't do it. We need to displace that. Forgive me, with my scientist mind, is
We're
well,
running short
yeah,
of time, and I'm
yeah,
regretting it because you've got something going on there, ladies and gentlemen
yes.
that are watching and this recording or whatever. Did we start this with the right guest or what? Lydia, love you. That was amazing. Got to take you off though, because we've got a whole list of people that are on time schedules that we want to make sure to be here. Always love
Okay.
you to death. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Lydia.
right.
Bye. Well, we started great. We started
We
really
did for
great.
sure.
It's
Keep
always
going.
good to have to remove somebody because of a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Now we're going to north central snow belt of America to my dearest and honorable daughter with amazing thoughts. Stina Marie. Stina, good day, dearest friend. It's lovely to have you here.
Lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
You bet. You bet. Well, you've got an idea what we're talking about. A little bit of self-sabotage and imposter syndrome. And when you're working with your clients, how do those, maybe they intersect, maybe not? Perhaps you can bring us a little bit of information here.
Yeah, for sure. I totally think they intersect. And a lot of times we can't really tease one apart from the other because they just like to get in that little dance with each other. And I think what's at the root of it is this question of, are we in denial and diminishing ourselves or our strengths, our experience, our expertise? Or are we just learning something new? Because when you can distinguish between those, it gives you a lot better idea of what next step to take and how to move forward. Because if you're in denial, that means people are giving you recognition, or you've gotten a position at work, or even you've gotten a compliment and you're just deflecting it and you don't believe it. And if you're just learning something new, it means, okay, this is all unfamiliar. And it's a choice to then practice the belief and practice noticing what you're growing and what strengths are, that you're working on and that you're building skills for. And then being able to appreciate either of those processes, to appreciate what people give you and to appreciate what you're practicing and learning at the same time.
Thank you, Stina. What comes up for me is when I got my driver's license. And when that guy told me I did it, I was like, oh, I so fooled him. Like, I can't really drive. But I got him fooled. And what I realize now, of course, is that he knew that I wasn't, an expert in driving. He knew that I was just getting started and that I was a beginner. And it's that self-acceptance piece of like, I get to be a beginner. I get to be in the beginning of a process. And it's the feeling and the emotion of enjoying that process and being grateful for it that comes in as well. And that's such an important piece. Thank you. What comes up for you, Terry?
Everyone's unique. And, so many of us go through life not aware that we are self-sabotaging. We just think we have bad luck, and because we have bad luck, to have any success at all is a pipe dream, okay? And which causes a lot of imposter syndrome. So they kind of mat into each other, because when we start having success, not understanding how we work as a person, we think we're fakes and somebody's going to ruin it all any minute. Because if they don't ruin it, I'm going to ruin it, because I know I always do, because I'm bad luck, And once I had self-sabotage all my life, but I always thought, for whatever reason, I couldn't figure out why I would do that to myself, why I would be so successful and then mess it all up over and over again. It was just, I don't get it. I just don't get it. So I kept searching for something that would work. And I did. The repetitive behavior cellular regression sequence that we have all over the world. And we teach about, this is not a commercial, but it's fact. It allowed me to train somebody good enough to take me through the sequence and find the reason why I kept self-sabotaging all my life. And what an amazing event at the end of that tunnel. Wow, it was amazing. And Stina, you do a lot of things. You work at, you're an old soul in a young woman, because you do amazing work, and the people, the demographics that can talk to you so plainly is really a joy to see. And having you on here was great. I'm going to, I want to keep you on here just like Lydia, but I can't because you've got to go this time. And so thank you ever so much for being here. Love you, and talk to you soon, I'm sure.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Stina. Bye.
Well, we're bouncing all over the world. And who out there from Greece? Well, we got somebody from Greece that we're bringing to talk to. We might even have a couple of them. How about that? This gentleman I met online through this process, and he just keeps coming back, and I love what he has to say. Theophanis Vargolis, welcome, my friend. Are you in Greece this time? You travel all over the place like
No,
I
I'm not. I'm not in Greece. I'm in Armenia right now.
do.
But Friday I'm going to Athens. I'm in Yerevan,
Ah,
Armenia, and Friday I'm going to Athens. Yes.
okay.
How are you? Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you
Imposter
all.
syndrome, right? And self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Okay. Imposter syndrome, a few things like feeling success is not good enough for me, all these negative feelings. And the self-sabotage is, of course, you trip yourself and you fall while you do things, right? So I'm going to take Rogers again, my favorite psychologist, and try to frame this. Rogers says, as we said in past presentations, that there is the actual self and the ideal self. And this whole struggle that happens in us is to move towards the ideal self from our actual self. Now, looking at the actual self specifically, it has two dimensions. It's who I am today, as you see me, and how I see myself. And I see myself in two ways. One, the way they expect me to be, or society has expecting me to be, and I try to match that role. I feel that they are assigned to me. And internally, who I really am, what I am, what I want to do in life, what is exciting for me. And that usually happens when it's a large differentiation between the two in the actual self. Really happens at the early years, when the parents don't give the child a lot of room to express themselves, but they give them a lot of expectations about what to do. So therefore, it builds an external behavior and has a different internal behavior. Now, when that happens, you tend to have the sense that you're not good enough, of course, right? Because that's what the thing is, right? Your natural self is not good enough. It's the effort that you make to maintain that. All right. So over time, once you get to the point that to challenge a little bit this idea, right? You tend to trip yourself. You go, to self-sabotage to stop this from happening. And I will try to explain it in the way I understand it, at least. That once you realize who you are, you don't want to win that specific thing, because it will get you deeper into the self you're not. If, for example, I'm a lawyer, I studied to be a lawyer, which I didn't, but I studied to be a lawyer because my parents wanted to be, right? But in reality, I want to be a musician. I have students like that, but they come and tell me that very clearly. So, and I wanted hard to be a musician. The more I get into law, the further I come from being a musician. The more I succeed in law, the more trapped I am. And that often makes me fail because it's my way of escaping, of not building on that, okay? Also, self-sabotage is a way to hide the responsibility of taking a decision, making a decision. You don't want to say, well, you know what? I don't want to do this. I'm making a decision. I'm not going to come and speak here today. I'm done with this, let's say, right, for example. But in reality, you don't want to expose, you don't dare expose yourself. There is an issue of self-trust. And you say, I need a good alibi. And the alibi is, I got sick, I have fever. Literally got sick, I get fever in alcohol. Or I tripped over something, or whatever, right? So create, with the accident, we create the alibi, the self-sabotage. Now, I want to say also that there are two types of self-sabotage. One is positive. I say they both are positive, actually, because they solve some problems we have in a very nice, covered way. But I'll try to say what one has to do with imposter syndrome, the other does not. And the self-sabotage that has to do with imposter syndrome, we explained it. There are situations, though, that we do. I'll tell you a specific story of a friend that a young actually friend that is a psychologist, and he got a job in Italy from Greece to practice, do things. After being a few months there, basically, he had covered all the knowledge he wanted, the things he done. He had planned a trip elsewhere. He wanted to get out, but he couldn't. He had a contract. He was being harassed by some people there. He had some issues there anyway. And eventually he got locked out of his apartment and became a late at night, became a whole crisis issue. They didn't go to help him, they accused them, etc. And at the end, the management actually apologized. It was a very dramatic event that held him for him. But that event allowed him to leave early, make that destination, and leave early from there. So something he couldn't get normally, he created a crisis situation that made it, imperative to get that. So, and we discussed it later, about a month later, we got into a discussion one night, and I said, you know what, let's think about what you did then. You did it like not knowing, but this was so well planned to leave without, So whenever we see these things, it's not necessarily a self-sabotage, but sometimes it's a self-opportunity.
We are constantly moving towards aligning with ourselves, right? And for some reason, one of Brene Brown's quotes come up, and I might butcher it, but it is that our experience of self-acceptance will never be higher than our experience of belonging will never be higher than our level of self-acceptance. That, to be part of, to accept that we are enough, it always begins with accepting ourselves first. And for some reason that comes up when you're sharing these parallel forces in our identity. As always, so profound, Theophanes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're on tough time schedule this time. These are just fabulous conversations. I thank you so much, and enjoy your evening in Armenia. It's probably dinner time there now. I don't know, but the food's not bad there. So blessings to you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Wow, what a lineup we have got going here, and it's still going way farther east, where it's going to Southwest Asia, to India, and my new good friend. We've done some lives and some interviews together. Kashira Fatima, welcome, my friend. Good to see you.
Hello. I love the energy that you people are bringing on the call. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Kashira. Welcome.
So you got the theme, got some in. What are your thoughts?
I'm not good enough. And I kept sitting on that couch for years, not taking action. And that's the story of so many people out there, even today. Though I've been able to move myself, heal myself, and transform my life by that slight shift in the mindset, but I know there are a lot of people out there who need that help. And I appreciate all that you people are doing by having these wonderful conversations, because I think conversations like this can really help people in understanding, number one, that they're not alone in dealing with these feelings. That is one of the strongest things that people need as a support system, that I'm not the only one. So I'll give you a small story. Don't worry, it won't take much time. When I started my podcasting journey, so Jenny, I don't know whether you know about it. I host a podcast. It's called as Simplifying Life with Kashira. And I started it 2 years ago. But before that, I kept delaying it. So I am a non-native English speaker. And I always thought that I'm not good enough. My English is not good enough. Maybe, I'll keep practicing and I'll reach there. Once I'll become perfect, and only then I'll start my journey. And I kept intimidating my own self. I kept giving power to my doubtful side of me, as you rightly said, Jenny, the angel and the devil voice. So this is what I kept doing for a very long time, until I decided to make a change in my life, and until I decided to accept myself and give a little boost to my confidence. I thought that this is enough, and I need to understand that I'm important in this world. The day I started giving myself a relevant position, there was no going back. So, my key message to everybody out there who's dealing with this would be that instead of giving importance to other people, give yourself some respect and importance, and you'll never be back there. That is what you need. You need to understand your worth. So
I'm
I guess
so glad
that's
you
all.
claimed your space, Kashira. Thank you for this powerful share. And, perfection doesn't exist, right? I don't even know why there's a word for it. It is our humanity that is the bridge between us. And I am confident that people have connected with you for being you. And I honor you for sharing that with the world and keeping it real and authentic. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Really glad to be part of this.
I am very glad that you accepted the invitation. We've had some great conversations in the past, and I look to see us having some more of those great conversations. Have a great evening, my friend, and we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Now we're jumping just a little bit on the west side of the Atlantic, up Norway area, where my friend and colleague is waiting to come on, I think. I don't see her camera up. Dorrit, you there? I don't see your camera up.
You don't see my camera? It's on?
No, I don't.
It's partially on.
Yeah, I see part of
There
it.
is nothing blocking it or anything. Huh. What's happening?
We can hear you.
We can hear you just fine, but I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're sure there's not something on the lens itself, huh?
Let me see what I can do.
There
Oh.
you are.
You're right
you go.
there. We see you fine.
Okay.
All of you.
Right. All
Beautiful.
right.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello,
Welcome.
Norway.
Thank you.
Welcome to
Thank
the
you,
health
guys.
coach.
Yeah. What a
lovely
lovely lineup. Oh my gosh. I'm just sitting here drinking tea and enjoying everything, and just I kind of forgot I was going on. So I was like, oh, it's me.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So self-sabotage and imposter behavior, some of the clients you work with come around that subject line more than once, I know.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. My first thought when I saw the topic was it's not easy to be parents, because if I knew when I was bringing up my own kids how my words would stick to their mind, and when I see it in the clients that I got, it can be a sentence said to them when they were 5 years old, and it's still playing in their subconscious mind. And so I wish I knew then what I know now, and that's part of what I want to share with everyone, that what you say around children and what you say to children matters so much. Can I take a little story?
Sure, Billy.
Okay, awesome. I had a client, a lady in her late 30s, and she had been dropping out of every relationship after a while. in the beginning, everything was like perfect, and she was treated like a princess, and everything was just super duper. And then when things started to get normal, like we would say normal in a relationship, she thought things were not working and she would end it. And she did that over and over and over, just self-sabotaging. Yeah, not working with it or anything, but she couldn't understand why this was happening. So when I took her through my session, she remembered that when she was a little girl, she was daddy's girl, and daddy loved her so much. And he said all the time that no one will ever love you as much as daddy does. You will never be as wonderfully loved as I do, and no one can ever be your special person like me. So he was just loving her and saying that he loved her, but he was emphasizing that he was the benchmark, you know. So all her relationships was compared to that. And when you're a little girl and you're daddy's girl and you're a princess and you get spoiled and get everything you want, of course the start of a relationship is super. But she couldn't handle it when things got settled down. She didn't think she was loved. And that was kind of an eye-opener for her, that she kind of realized that, oh, maybe I shouldn't compare my dates, my partners to my daddy, and that's not a healthy relationship kind of a thing. So that kind of worked out. And the imposter syndrome part of this, well, I can only talk for myself. And when I started with coaching pretty late in life, around 7 years ago, I had my fair share of in my belly, and is this going to work, and how will this be? And I thought myself to kind of just center and say what Jenny already knows. I know and I trust, to kind of remind myself that I know what I need to know, and I trust myself to carry it through.
Lovely.
And
Jen?
I love those words, Dorit. Yes. What comes to me is that our brain tends to believe what it is told. And, you know, to a fault, when people have been telling us things, I mean, sometimes, you know, with the best intentions, but as you say, like, it sticks with us. We're like sponges. We just take in everything. So the self-leadership moving forward so often is that, you know, now, so thank you. And now I get to choose the story I'm telling myself. You know, now I get to choose what is true to me and the words that I am telling myself, as you are sharing, Dorit. And that's so powerful. And I share that with my clients as well. Not those exact words, but, you know, at the end of the day, to let yourself know out loud that I am safe and I am loved and I'm exactly where I'm meant to be right now. Just that, you know, that presence right here. And it's such a shift for clients to move into that new pathway. And I'm interested in as to what comes up for you guys, as, you know, what is supportive to people to build that new voice and establish those new pathways.
Great story. Great story. You know, it brings back to mind a couple of different clients I've had over the years where I basically told them, I says, stop trying to find your father. He's already taken. Find somebody that you want to be with and you can love, and maybe have some traits of your father, but you're never going to marry your father. So give that up. You know, what a story. Dorit, thank you. Norway's well represented today. I appreciate you and love you, and hope to talk to you again.
Oh, pretty
Thank you,
soon, I
Dorit.
guess. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
We are just all over the world, and we are just getting started. Now, I'm not sure where my next guest is. He spends a lot of time in the U.S. in the beautiful Colorado mountains, as well as out in Greece. He makes me jealous all the time, and he is a very dear friend and colleague. Ilya Guguris. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jenny, and good to see you too, my good ambassador, my good friend. And I am
It's
in
good to see
Colorado
you.
right now. I'm leaving 2 weeks from today. I'll be landing in Greece, so you caught me in between.
Well, it was a fair guess. So, what do you got with imposter syndrome and
Yeah.
self-sabotage?
So, self-sabotage, imposter syndrome. Obviously, these are psychological patterns that inhibit and prohibit our personal growth and our professional growth. Right. Uh, I think self-sabotage most of the times starts off with the thoughts that we have in our heads, like the negative self-talk, but sometimes it's subconscious. And I'm not using my clinical psychologist hat. That was the first half of my career when I did that for 18 years in private practice. Sometimes it comes in the form of procrastination. Sometimes it comes in the form of avoidance or of avoiding a challenge. Sometimes it comes in the form of perfectionism, which sometimes leads to paralysis analysis, kind of like you want to have everything so perfectly set that you never even take the first step towards accomplishing your goals. And the procrastination to me is the easiest to identify, like when you're working with somebody and you get to know them, you give them the right tools to be successful, they make a commitment to accomplish certain tasks by a certain time, and then the time comes, they don't do it. And then what comes next is a myriad of excuses as to why we didn't get it done. Um, the imposter syndrome, I can relate. Unlike some of your previous guests that may have started coaching a little bit later on in life, I started doing being a therapist in my mid to late 20s. And, I had a baby face. So I looked like I was 18, and, in the United States, or at least in California at the time, once you get your PhD, you have to have 3,000 hours as an intern in order to get for your license for your board exams. So getting those 3,000 hours, I used to work at a counseling center, and you get people off the street that you work with whoever comes up at the counseling center. And one time, so there's a waiting room. They push a little button. You go. Hey, come on in. There's this young lady. I've never met her before. It's in the initial intake as you do, your first session. And as I'm walking back to my room, she's walking behind me, and she mumbles this to herself: "Just my luck. I got the youngest therapist in the state of California." And I was the youngest. So you don't think I had imposter syndrome? Like, oh my gosh, already we haven't even exchanged hello or anything, and she's already criticizing me. She's right behind me. So for the next hour, I'm like sweating bullets trying to prove my worth, right? Like I know what I'm doing. I'm like, I've got my master's already. I'm finishing up my PhD. The beautiful and you know why I remember that? Because first of all, it's funny, although it scared the crap out of me, of course, because she was kind of intimidating. She was a lady with a big energy force. Let's put it that way. Well, for whatever reason, I got it after I got to know her a little bit. I got into the zone, which doesn't happen very often. But it's like getting in the zone in a basketball court. Everything you shoot goes in, and I must have channeled something else, and whatever came out of my mouth must have been spot on, because by the end of the session, she was like kind of like mesmerized, like this, and she just said, "Wow." We set up the next appointment. She leaves. Now I'm all by myself in my room, and I'm like, who said that? Because I didn't feel like I was missing. Like, I don't know where that came from. How everything comes out of your mouth, sometimes it's like to perfection. But I totally suffered from imposter syndrome for the longest time. I used to do marriage counseling, and I had people who were married for 35 years, and they were married 35 years. I was younger than that. I hadn't even lived life for 30 years. So I'm like, what do I know to help them with their marriage? I'm not married. I don't know anything. What do I know? So I kind of struggled. That took a while for me to get the confidence and to feel like, what, actually you do know what you're talking about, and don't let these comments from other people from the outside, and really to trust. But it wasn't easy because, like I said, I looked a lot younger than I was. So people didn't take me seriously as a result of that. Like, well, you're a nice kid, kind of. But, I have a PhD next to my name, but it didn't matter to them because of the way that I looked. So, anyway, I think the imposter syndrome and self-sabotage plays out. We see this every single day. If you look at celebrities, look at people that have accomplished by the world standards, fame, fortune, adoration and all that stuff. And yet, when they're at their peak of their career and all that stuff, guess what they do? They self-sabotage, and they end up in ruined relationship. They end up in drug or alcohol rehab, because what they're getting from the world is so much, but they don't believe that they deserve it. So in order for that, there's a discrepancy, right? There's a cognitive dissonance between what happens. So they start undermining themselves. So they fall from grace, if you will. And this happens, you guys, all the time. So yeah, those are my 2 cents. It's real. It's real.
Thank you. It truly is. I think the first point you're bringing up there is so important, how we tend to, and I'm glad that you got back to yourself, but it's so easy for us to get stuck in the heads of others, guessing what are they thinking, what are they expecting. And really, when we're being present with, the heads of other people, we're spending less time in our own and being inspired. And that's what I'm hearing. You got back to yourself to be inspired, maybe even in spirit, in that situation. And that turned out such a good help and service and support for that woman. And that's what your, intention was truly about, to be there for her. Such a beautiful story, Leah. Thank you.
But the hook, of course, is that there was truth to what she said. I was young, and I know I looked young, and I didn't have a lot of experience. So all that was true. So it's very easy to get hooked in my own mind. I'm like, yeah, maybe I don't really know what I'm talking about. What am I even doing here? These people are older than me. Like, I don't know anything. It's normal to have that.
Yeah. Ilya, good to have you with us, my friend. Thank you so much for making this such a joy. Good travels back to Greece, my friend.
Thank you. A couple of keynotes, and I'll be back home in April. So it's a quick trip. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Bye-bye. We're all over the place. You ever hear of Ireland? Well, my buddy and co-host and good friend had some extra time, and he's jumping on with us right now. Lovely to see you. Simon Haig. Simon, how you are, my friend?
Great to see you both. Great to see you, Ambassador Terry. I haven't seen you for ages. And Jenny, it's great to see you too. And it's a great conversation, and a conversation that is very close to my heart in terms of my own life experiences. And I love Dr. Elia's conversations. I agree with everything he said. So great conversation.
Absolutely. What are you bringing to the fore today? Now, you and I have talked about this kind of stuff a couple of times off camera in different backgrounds. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd start with, a little quote, and it's not my quote, but it's be careful how you talk to yourself, because you are listening to yourself, and from my perspective, Dr. Gabor Mate talks about that a lot of what frames us before we're even born, and so, and as Dr. Elia said, I talk about the 3 P's of imposter syndrome: perfectionism, people pleasing, and procrastination. He talked about perfectionism and procrastination, and that was me, right? And that happened to me because a lot of the time it's around neglect, childhood neglect, and it in many forms. It could be psychological, social, emotional, and so the child just gets lost, and what happens then? There's that cognitive dissonance, and rather than, lack of self-belief, lack of self-love, you start taking it out on yourself, because you're the closest person to yourself. So for me, sabotage and imposter syndrome go hand in hand. And, there's a great book called Into the Magic Shop by an American neurosurgeon. And he talks, it's called Into the Magic Shop. And he talks about, if you really, really want to get back to being yourself, you need to look after your mind. You need to look after your body. Yes, you need to have plans and goals and strategies. But what most people fail to do is get truly honest with themselves. And so for me, it's that journey of getting really honest with yourself. And I think that's the kind of the key message I want to give. And really, it's about, as Jenny always says, it's about self-awareness and recognizing that we don't have to be what we think. We're all perfect creatures, right? I mean, and be careful about how you talk to yourself. particularly the negative stuff, the lack of self-love, because a lot of that is inevitably framed from those experiences before the age of 7. You know, there's an academic in Croatia called, I think, Dr. Alinka Bracic-Lilic, and she says up to the age of 7, we are our authentic selves. We're really precious those first 7 years. And so, of course, we're going to absorb everything. We're going to absorb neglect. We're going to listen to the negative comments or whatever it is, as Dr. Ellie, and we're going to take those on board. And that's going to frame us. And so to be able to shake that off, we have to go through a lot of self-therapy. And that's what, Jenny, I know you know a lot about that. So I could talk about this forever, but I'll leave it at that, I think.
Wonderful. So being our authentic selves and paying attention to the thoughts, and what comes to mind is like, really, how are we opening that door to ourselves?
Yeah.
You know, if I am to know myself and becoming self-aware, then I'm not going to share that with someone who is judging me and, critical and looking at everything that's going wrong. I will share that with someone who is compassionate and curious and interested and patient, and all of the things that we're giving and pouring into the relationships that are safe and secure in our lives. And I'm hearing that we get to share that, those eyes on ourselves as well, to grow that self-awareness. Thank you.
No, I agree. And these, I've been through a process of dealing with addiction, and 12-step programs talk about the 3 tenets for recovery are willingness, open-mindedness, but above all else, self-honesty. And self-honesty isn't just about not telling lies. It's about really, really working hard on getting to know who you are, who you're meant to be, that authentic, going back to being that authentic 7-year-old, and hugging that little boy when you feel scared. And it's interesting, I look at some of, I'm not going to mention any names here, I'm not going to get into politics, but I look at some of the dictators around the world, and they're always men. And I look at them, and basically they're men children. They're children. You can see a lot of hurt and pain in them, right?
Yeah.
They could do with a bit of therapy themselves, don't you think?
I do think, and I'm also the timekeeper, and I've got some time commitments. Lovely to see you, my dear friend. We've got to catch up. We've got to catch up. It's been forever.
We will.
All
Take
right.
care. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, Simon.
Now we're off to New York. New York. Who lives in New York? Well, somebody who teaches some pretty good stuff and has been on with me for some different events, and he's a brilliant teacher, Mr. Todd Churches. Hello, my friend. Good to see you.
Terry and Jenny.
Hi, Todd.
Great to see both of you.
Welcome back.
Loving this conversation. So much to say about it. So much triggering so many stories. All the guests. Nice to see Dr. Leah and other friends on this show. So this has been great.
Yeah. Well, what little story do you have along the lines of self-sabotage and imposter syndrome, my friend? You've done a lot of teaching at Columbia and different places. You've had some experience along this line, I am sure.
Yeah, I mean, with my students at NYU and Columbia, graduate students, and with my executive coaching clients, it's a constant theme. Something we're always working on is, imposter syndrome, and the question, why me, and reframing that as why not me, right? So I actually just wrote a blog post 2 days ago that people can check out on LinkedIn called "Similar to, Different from, Better Than," and it's a framework that helps people think about, like, if someone says, I want to write a book on leadership. Right? There's a billion books on leadership out there. So I need to say or ask them to think about answering the question, in what what books is your book similar to, right? You want to compare yourself to some of the ones that are popular and well-known. How is it different from, and how is it better than? Like, if you can frame your book or position or any service that we're offering, right? It's similar to this, it's different in this way, but here's how it's better, or here's my own spin on it, or something like that. That helps us. One, it gives us the confidence. And it's like, why you? Why are you the only one who can write this book, right? So what are the stories you could tell? What are the experiences you can share that will help others, right? So if a lot of it is just tricking our mind, right? If you're saying, like, who am I to executive coach a CEO? I've never been a CEO, right? But you have experiences that they don't. Bill Nye, the science guy, has a quote I always use is, everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't, right? So we all have different life experiences. So sometimes my students, if you're a 25-year-old female from Beijing, what do you know that I don't? Well, a lot. I've never been a 20-year-old female from Beijing. So all of your life experiences I can learn from. So just that reframing, that repositioning. I always say I talk loud and fast. I'm from New York, but I'm an extreme introvert. I'm always having to push myself out of my comfort zone. I say, you have to go from your comfort zone to the zone of the unknown, right? And when you're in that zone of the unknown, it's unpredictable because it's a future version of you or a future state. So we're all taking risks. We're all trying new things. I always describe myself as a 3Bs guy, a back of the room, behind the scenes bookworm by nature. So I say to my students, when you stand up and talk in class, you're speaking more than I spoke in all my years of undergraduate and graduate school, because I never once raised my hand. I never got up in front of the class. So people always think, oh, you must have been the captain of the baseball team or basketball team. You must have been class president. I literally went to school and came home, and that was it. So, but there was one story I have to share that I haven't thought about in years, and it relates to self-sabotage. I somehow got up the courage to try out for my school baseball team. I was very good, but I was just really, again, because of my introversion, had a hard time being around other kids. So I tried out. I made it through 3 rounds. I made it to the final cut, and then I quit. I didn't even tell my parents I tried out. And because this is the self-sabotage, it's not only what if I fail, but what if I succeed? If I succeed, if I get picked, now I have to perform. Now I'm going to be on the team. Now I'm going to be around all these other kids, have all this pressure and stress. So I rewarded myself for making it that far, but I quit before I could be cut, because I figured, one, I'll either be cut or I'll have to be on the team. And that will open up a whole other potential to fail. And then that imposter syndrome would kick in. Who am I to be on this team? Right. So it's just interesting. I hadn't thought about that story in many, many years. But how often do we do that? That's not only fear of failure, but fear of success. Right. When I got my book deal, it's like, now I have to write a book that people are going to want to read. When I got chosen to do my TEDx talk, now I have to design and deliver a TEDx talk that other people will hopefully watch. So again, that it's really interesting how one success can lead to another fear of failure. And so those are just a few of the stories and thoughts that were crossing my mind as I was listening to some of the other stories.
Absolutely. Jen?
Thank you, Todd. Oh, the fear of success. I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, what comes up for me is that deeply down, we get to recognize that we're actually worthy of receiving that success, and that it always comes back to the joy of the journey and, the emotions around experiencing that. And it's, it's so easily makes things that, end up on our to-do list when it's actually, it really gets to be on our pleasure list to write that book and have that experience and enjoy the journey. And I don't know, for some reason, what comes up for me is like, let's stay in pleasure. Let's stay in the journey and the joy of experiencing that journey. Thank you, Todd, so much.
Sure. Just want to say one tip I have for people is, if we remember our past successes, it makes it easier to try, because we're reminded of our times that we did push ourselves, we did take a risk, we did try. So I keep, here's my Todd Smile file. So I keep a file of thank you notes and good reviews I've gotten and things like that. And it just reminds me sometimes when you need that emotional boost of, can I do this? It's like, well, I've done this in the past, and these are just reminders of the impact they've had on people. So start your own smile file and thank you note file, and just look at it whenever you need that burst of inspiration or confidence that, hey, I've done it before, I could do it again.
Delightful. Dear friend, thank you for popping in with us.
Thank you for having me.
It was just terrific, as always. Have a wonderful day. I've got somebody back over the Atlantic to hop on here and still cross the world. We've got people in Australia, all over the place on time commitments. Love you much. See you. Bye-bye. Well, we got a voice from Scotland that people like to listen to. And you know what? I like to listen to this guy too, because he's an amazing international speaker and a very accomplished person. And my friend, Mr. Mike Stevenson. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Hello, Ambassador Terry. Hello, Jenny. I'm delighted to be back. Here am I calling from Scotland. To me, it's it's a complex issue. I don't think I've experienced imposter syndrome. And I think that comes from being adrift as a teenager. I was away from home, I was sleeping out, and I had to take very bold steps. And you got quite accomplished at going into situations that were beyond you, and, you know, and somehow making your presence felt. And I got used to that. So I could go onto any stage in the world, I would not feel imposter syndrome. But when it comes to self-sabotage, yes, I've got a story to tell. And I don't know where it comes from. I do know that relationships were always a problem for me. I've had many. And I put it down to, you know, feeling very settled at home when I was young, feeling that everything around me was safe and comfortable, and it was a loving environment. And then that all went adrift. And whenever I felt settled in a relationship, I wanted to break it up because I couldn't face it being broken up for me. Does that make sense? So I would self-sabotage there. I also think, and you know, someone told me recently, I'm a poverty thinker. And I think I probably am. I'm not good at going for money. I'm never driven by money. But when you find yourself skint, you need money. And I think I have been largely responsible for, you know, not allowing myself to get with the big bucks, because I'm slightly embarrassed by going for money. And I think that comes from both the environment in which I grew up, which is in Scotland, which is not driven by money in the same way as, you know, for example, Silicon Valley. But at the same time, I need to earn money. So I'm going through this journey just now, and I've put my price up. And I had the biggest an inquiry today, which, if it comes to fruition, would be the biggest contract I ever had for speaking. It involves 8 gigs around another country, which is an extraordinary thing. Now, I think that I've somehow opened myself up to earning money again. I've made money in the past, and I threw it away. I gave it away. I didn't like having money. So now I'm in a kind of needs base. I do need to get some money together because I want to do some of the things that I haven't managed to do for a few years. But definitely self-sabotage. And in relationships, it's very clear why. In, you know, shooting myself in the foot, which I sometimes do deliberately. I sometimes go into situations that are so risky, and I take the most absurd risks. I have about 10 times a week, I will burn my fingers because I'll pick something straight out of the oven without oven gloves. And people are with me say, why did you do that? I say, I don't know, I just do it. You know, when someone says, don't touch the plate, it's hot when you're in a restaurant, I will always touch the plate. So I have this extraordinarily risk-taking attitude to life. And it means that sometimes I will go too far, I will trip up, I will fall flat on my face. Not imposter syndrome, but self-sabotage. I've had it in spades throughout my life, and I don't know where it comes from. I can guess at it, but it's just always been with me. I think I'm quite a complex psychological case, but I'm almost 75 now, so I've survived to now. So I haven't sabotaged myself to that extent. And I'm looking forward now to launching a much improved phase of my career, because I've kind of worked out that, you know, I don't consider myself a speaker. I consider myself the speaker. I don't have any problem saying that. And I say that because keynote speakers bore the hell out of me in the main, because it's a set. As soon as you listen to something and you think that's a rehearsed set speech, I turn off. I was at somewhere yesterday and I turned off. And, you know, I want to excite, I want to engage, I want to to send ripples. I want to disrupt. I want to do all these things. And that's what I bring to what I do. So I'm not going to be categorized as here's another speaker. Does that make sense? It may sound self-inflated, but it's actually not. It's being very clear about who I am and what I offer. Now I've got to put the money to it as well. So that's what I am.
Yeah, Jen?
What comes up for me, Mike, is that there is always a money belief, right? There's always that story around money that has emotion and expectations and you know, even like experiences of lack or abundance to it. And we get to recognize what the story is, and what is truly powerful in the work that we're all going through is that we can decide what story we're writing, and we can acknowledge it, and we can see it, and we can shift it, and we can see the result of that in our lives. And it's an interesting topic on, you know, good or bad, and just becoming aware of what was brought to us when we were little.
If I could just add to that, the times in my life where I've had joy, I didn't have money. The times I've had money, and I had a lot of money at one stage, I went to stay at the top hotels, you know, with the piano playing in the cocktail bar. I hated them. They were the most lonely, cold, empty places. And then you stay in a small hotel where all the guests know each other and you make friends for life. And I vowed then that I would never go to these top hotels. It's a waste of money to me. You get a warm, comfortable bed, but it's a cold environment, you know. People keep themselves to themselves. So I like the wee cozy restaurants. So I actually like what not having money brings you. But I know now if I had money, I would go to the cozy restaurants and the small hotels.
Wonderful. Wonderful. My friend, I am still the timekeeper. I hate doing this, but gotta do it. Lovely to hear you, my friend. Lovely to see you. And we'll talk again soon, my brother. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's good seeing you, Mike. Bye.
Now I'm still under time commitments, and I'm going to get some people to bed. They're all over the place in the world. We got somebody in New Zealand that it's very late at night, and I want to take and have her on here. She's a wonderful guest. She's been on a couple of different things that Jenny and I have done in the past, and her story is quite interesting as well. Dallas Rose makes 70. Hi, Dallas.
Hello. It's actually early morning for me.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's tomorrow for you. It's Thursday here. So yeah, I'm coming to you from the future. Hey, it's so exciting for me to hear all your guest speakers talk about this, and especially important, I think, for lots of people, hopefully, who will listen to this recording, to come to the realization that they are not alone. Imposter syndrome and self-sabotage happens to everyone at different stages, at different parts of their life. I think that's the other thing that we kind of battle with personally when it comes to these types of afflictions, if you like, is we think we're the only ones suffering it. So we don't tend to talk outwards about the mental torment that we're going through or putting ourselves through most of the time, because we're afraid of showing up as different to the rest of the world. Whereas this discussion's hopefully helping people realize that actually, if you started a conversation with someone and talked about how you feel or how you're reacting, a couple things might happen. One, they might turn around in shock and look at you and go, what do you mean you suffer from imposter syndrome? I've always seen you as this. That's what I get, right? If I've ever, when I go through those stages, because I don't suffer from it all the time, but I definitely have in my life, and I share that with anyone, most of the time they're absolutely stunned. They're sitting there going, no, you're really confident. You're someone I really admire. You're the person who has got it all together. And I'm like, that's really awesome. That's fantastic that's how I come across. It's, great. I said, but that's not my internal conversation that I'm having with myself. And the couple of things I'd like to share today is is more around, when it shows up for me, and that might resonate for some other people who are listening. I shifted from a career role where I was working for one company for 20 years, just over a decade ago. And since then, so while I was in there, I was kind of known as the guru, the expert in certain areas of knowledge that I had. And people came to me all the time. And I had I went through many different roles. I loved the development that company was a very big bank in New Zealand. It gave me an opportunity to learn and discover new things and find the things. I never knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I could just grab opportunities and move to the next one. And it was really great in that sense. But when I left, I had to go through a process where I had to learn and understand that the skills that I had acquired or had natively within myself that I'd applied within that career role were mine. They weren't actually linked to the role I was doing within that organization. And that actually stunned me when I got hit by that brick wall. And then from there on, as I've started new jobs, I suffer from imposter syndrome in the first so many weeks of every job that I do. Even when I am now a consultant for roles, and that proves that people recognize, because they're employing me for the skills that I have, they're willing to pay the rate that I charge. That should be enough evidence to me that they have faith that I have what it takes. But when I start that role, my self-doubt about whether or not I've pulled the wool over their eyes, like your story at the beginning, Jenny. It was like about whether or not I've managed to convince them otherwise that I can do this thing when really I can't, and they're going to find out. Those types of things all come into my head in the first few weeks. And of course, any new job's a really steep learning curve. You've got to find out a whole heap of stuff. And that's aligned with that. If you're also thinking with self-doubt, it's really hard to actually become really great at that. The other thing I wanted to add was around power of words, and it has been touched on a few times. For self-sabotage or even imposter syndrome, we always have some negative stories that we're telling ourselves. So there's things like, I am not, I cannot, I do not, I could not, all have one thing in common, and that's the not. So if we drop the not off all of those, it's I am, I can, I do, I could. How transformational was that, right?
And I'm so glad that not does not stick with our brain as easily as those other words, right? Let's just let it go.
That's right. And even if you just practice the exercise of doing that, it shifts the energy in your body. So it may feel a bit silly to stand there in your own privacy, your own home, and say those 4 phrases out loud and then repeat them without the word not. It actually does shift the energy in your body, and you start to actually realize, no, this isn't mumbo jumbo. We're not just airy-fairy saying, if you think positively, you will actually change. It is a real thing.
And we are, we get to choose who we are. I am the person I choose to be, right? It's the creation of our identity, which is an ongoing process, which you touched on. One thing that comes up for me is being proud, and accumulating the experiences and moving on to a new task, and feeling like we're a fraud when in fact, there's so much that we get to be really proud of. I want to just stay with that word for a little bit, because that's something that culturally has been shamed on. At least here in Sweden, don't you think that you are someone? That's within our culture. When really, really, science tells us that feeling proud about what we are, that's a basic emotion that is in our frontal lobe. And the function that it has is that it brings us closer together. Because when I am proud of what I know and what I can do, I want to share that with you guys. I want to talk to you. I want to share the process of how I gained that information and, what that taught me. And that's actually how information has been shared over history. we have been sharing with each other. So that's something that's coming up for me as you're sharing, Dallas, that we get to be proud moving forward into our next role.
I love that. And that is something that resonates here in New Zealand as well, that we try to silence that side of us. It isn't a culturally accepted thing to say, I am proud of who I am. I'm proud of what you do. That's absolutely in abundance, right? But to turn around and say, I'm proud of me, it's akin to saying, I love me. They're really difficult things for most of us to say without training, without assistance of how to flip our thinking and understand that it's okay and give ourselves permission that we're worthy of having those thoughts.
Right. So wonderful to have you on here. Thank you again, Dallas, and have a lovely morning.
Will do. Absolute pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, my friend. Bye.
Bye, Dallas.
Well, we're going to be on the West Coast of the Americas for a little while now, working our way over to the East Coast. And a very dear friend, I was introduced to him a number of years ago, and him and I just clicked. I joined his worldwide organization, and I regularly have a very watery mouth. This guy's an incredible cook. Chef, he's no cook. And a dear friend, Willis Turner. Hello, my friend. How you doing out in the Vancouver land?
Well, for some reason, the sound is not with you, Willis, but it's so good to see you. We're just waiting to hear you as well.
No.
Okay, how is that?
There he is.
Much better.
Hello, my friend.
Yeah, great to see you guys.
Yeah,
good to see you too.
It's great to see you because I know you got a lot of stories. You represent Sales and Marketing Executives International all over the world. It's a big organization, and you don't represent it; you run the show. So I bet you've heard these words before.
I have, and I'm going to tell a story on myself first. How's that? So it's about self-sabotage, and I really liked what one of your earlier guests said about be careful what you say to children, because children are very impressionable, and especially take heed to things that people say that they love and respect, like family members. And so I had a family member. It wasn't in my immediate family. It was, but it was somebody I loved and respected as a child. And he made fun of the size of my feet. Now that might seem like that's a silly thing to even remember, but I think sometimes maybe boys who have their feet grow faster than the rest of them, and so their feet can seem a little larger than in proportion to the rest of their body. But anyway, I started to become self-conscious about the size of my feet, and so when I became of the age of when I was responsible for buying my own shoes, I bought a shoe size smaller than what was comfortable, because I was so self-conscious and I thought that my feet were too big. And then I learned that the average size foot is about the same as mine for a guy. And so I dispelled that self-sabotage and learned to, enjoy the size of my feet. But it taught me a lesson about what I say to children. And it also taught me a lesson about what kind of things I listen to and take to heart, like what sticks. But really what I wanted to share with you today is something maybe a little bit abstract when it comes to imposter syndrome and self-sabotage. But I want to talk to you about the Stockdale paradox. And you may be familiar with this. It's named after Admiral James Stockdale, who was a prisoner of war. And it encapsulates the idea of holding two seemingly contradictory beliefs at the same time. And the first one is, you must confront the brutal facts of your current reality, no matter how challenging they are. And the second one is, you must maintain unwavering faith that you will ultimately prevail, no matter how difficult your journey. So that is pretty interesting in the context of self-sabotage and imposter syndrome. The Stockdale paradox can really be particularly helpful by providing a mental framework for dealing with fear and uncertainty. So the first of 3 points is facing the brutal facts. When you feel overcome by imposter syndrome or self-doubt, the first step is really just to acknowledge your fears and limitations honestly. This has really helped me. This might mean admitting that you're afraid of failure or that you're not as confident as you'd like to be. And sometimes we like to put on that bravado and that confident face, but sometimes we just have to admit, I'm really not super confident. But instead of letting those facts define you, you can use them as a starting point to develop a strategy for overcoming them. And so knowing that failures, setbacks, or doubts are part of the journey removes their power over you, and that is key. The second point is maintaining hope and faith in success. And we've heard a lot of our guests today talk about how do you deal with success. Even while facing tough realities, the Stockdale paradox urges you to believe in your eventual success. So you may not have all the answers right now, but trusting in your capacity to figure things out over time gives you resilience to really push forward. And this helps you avoid giving into the fear that imposter syndrome fosters, because you're taking a long-term view that there will be ups and downs, but ultimately you'll overcome them. And the third point is developing resilience. The paradox teaches resilience by balancing realism with optimism, and it prevents you from becoming paralyzed by fear of failure while also keeping you from blind optimism without addressing the realities of the challenges you face. And so you're really not being a pessimist or an optimist. And sometimes we can get caught into either one of those buckets. But with this mindset, when setback happens, you could see them as part of the process, not as evidence that you're not good enough. So in short, the Stockdale paradox really helps avoid both extremes of hopelessness and overconfidence and gives us more balanced, grounded approach to our challenges. It's really helped me, and it acknowledges our fears and limitations, but keeps us focused on the belief that success is still within reach, no matter how difficult the path may seem. So here's my final takeaway. Face the brutal facts, but never lose faith in your ability to overcome them.
Beautiful. Thank you, Willis. Acceptance and change. What comes up for me is because I'm a behavioral scientist, so I go into how the brain works, and that, there's room for everything. There's room for our fear and our doubt, and those emotions, they do serve us. There's no bad emotion. They're part of our guiding system, and there's that joy and that curiosity and that, being proud of what we're doing and the progress and the vision, of seeing further than what is and stepping into that. And it's all there for us, and it's all part of the process, and it's a beautiful process. Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome. It's always a pleasure.
What a great story. What a great story. And Admiral Stockdale's story of his captivity as a prisoner of war is quite a story at that. My friend, wonderful to see you. Thank you again for coming on and tell us a little bit about your world. And hopefully that message got through to somebody who's looking for that very message. Thank you, brother. Take care. Well, we're still out on the West Coast. My next guest lives out in the LA area. That's kind of a fiery, blistery place right now. And I'm looking forward to getting his input because he's quite a terrific fellow. We have another one of these people that I became instant friends with, and he's very revered and very highly respected, Dr. Abe Kuris. Abe, wonderful to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Good afternoon to you.
Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Ambassador. Hi, Jenny. Good to see you as well.
You're still in your house, so that's good news.
Sure is. Sure is. It's good to be with you. I missed you, my friend. And Jenny, I have not had the chance to meet you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
This is our opportunity, Abe. It's good to see you.
How you been? How is Linda?
Linda's great. The tech reps back there throwing notes and chats back there. She
Hi.
just said hi from the background. You probably heard her. And yeah, what a journey this afternoon. And you and I have talked off camera a couple of times about our clients and the way they do things. And your clients are very high level, very successful people, but self-sabotage and imposter syndrome is still a very real part of their world, as I found out with a couple of my clients. Perhaps you could bring something to the fore about that.
Absolutely. The more you are achieved, the more successful you are, the more you have internal reminders that you don't belong, that you do not belong to this place. What are you doing here? These are self-sabotaging thoughts that come internally. So there are consequences, benefits, but in the same time, you have to control the way you think and the way you manifest yourself. Today, my dear friends, I'm going to present you with something different. I'm going to present you, remember we talked about the book Self? The book Self also mentions, it's a framework. Book Self is a framework I developed through 5 years back. Up to now, we're still developing that. It allows you to break away from self-doubt and imposter syndrome. There are techniques that we can use. I'm going to share those shortly with you, briefly, with you and with your audience. These self-doubts, they whisper to you. They whisper to you, you do not belong. Aren't you afraid they're going to find out that you do not know what you're doing? They're just self-doubt. They're within. Consequences. You don't want to take on different assignments. You do not want to take a leadership role, so you don't want to be afraid that they're going to discover you don't know what you're doing. You don't have any more challenges. That's it. You sabotage yourself to succeed. The way we're saying, let's look at it from a different perspective. Let's reframe our thoughts. Let's say, and we talked about that a while back, Terry, Ambassador Terry, when we heard our friend Gary Ridge, he said there are no mistakes, there are learning moments. These learning moments, what we can tap onto in this particular situation, where we say these doubts that we have, these are really reminders that we have to grow. So instead of thinking of failure and we're going to fail, well, no, these are moments where we can grow, learning moments. So you start slowly but surely talking to the inner self. What I developed a process, a framework. It's called Self-Roles Approach, 500 pages book. I'm going to send you a PDF copy on that. And I need your review, endorsement. Self-roles approach. It's a framework where you can talk to your internal self. We have self-doubt, self-control, ideas about how to develop the self. Everything we say, everything we talk, we self. So what came to me, I was doing the compassionate leadership model, and the first level is self-compassion. I start seeing self-reflection, self-control, self-development. I said, "What? Come on, stop. There must be something different and unique about this self. We always mention it. Modern psychology failed. And this is engagement with modern psychology. We're not reinventing. I'm too humble and modest to say reinventing, but providing an alternative to the process of thinking, oh, this is a handicap. We have to look at it. No, this is not handicap. If you have self-imposter syndrome, that's fine. That's part of growth because we're learning. We're a machine. We're an active in creation. So we said, what's happening here with these selves? I started researching. I discovered for my research, I discovered there are 120 selves. There's the core self, which we all have, the core self. The core self, I coined it nafsiyu. Nafsiyu meaning the core self, because I want it to be different and unique. So when people say about nafsiyu, they talk about the self-roles approach. It complements other theories out there. And what it's telling us is this. It's telling us this core self is on a standby mode, and it's ready to welcome the other selves. These are not separate selves, technically. They are identity roles. They play different identities. Like now I'm talking to you. I'm trying to project a person or an individual that knows what he's doing. That's the knowledge self. If you talk to me in a way that angers me, I reflect to that. That's the anger self, the angry self. You are compassionate with me, I reciprocate in kind. This is the compassionate self. What I'm telling you is there are others selves within us that they're ready to take a center stage. They're ready to manifest themselves, and the core selves allows that. So in the self-doubt, in the self-sabotage, and the imposter syndrome, these are just aspects of this development stage. What we're saying is, if you talk back to yourself negative thoughts, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have stress, and you may have a burnout. That's psychologically defined terms, and probably you'll take medication with time. We're saying you don't have to have any of these. What you need to reflect on and understand is the parts within you that may also influence the way you perceive your internal self and others. Preparedness, yes, you have to be ready. You have to be an expert of what you're talking about. Do not assume that because you read a book or because you did this way. No, you have to do your legwork to actually present and talk and guide others and be guided by others. But what matters in this process, we have to break out of this self-sabotage and imposter syndrome by internalizing these identities that we have. How do we do this? Instead of saying, I'm not ready, let me say, do I belong or not? If I don't belong, what's missing? Why don't I belong to this environment, to this circle, to this school, to this work? What is missing? Based on that gain knowledge, I develop certain strategies to improve and become part of that society, school, a symposium, a conference. You have to be aware of the self-awareness is important, and mindfulness is important, follows from the compassionate leadership. So you really have to be aware of what these things, and you develop them to be able to talk to yourself and identify what's missing. If you're aware of this, it's just a learning process. Modern psychology taught us that you may fail because you're not ready. You do not belong. You have stress, you have anxiety, and possibly depression, and later on burnout or before burnout. We're saying do not think of yourself as a failure. Do not think of your not be able to commit and able to present and able to give as a failure. Think of that as a learning moment. These learning moments will develop you, will put you in a progress towards the success you need. Um, when you have self-doubt, you do not want to assume responsibilities or accountabilities. No, think differently. Think of being able to deliver and be able to talk to yourself within. It's an interesting phenomena that I discovered, and I promise to share that with you. And I'll be publishing this book hopefully within 6 months. It's an engagement with modern psychology to tell them there's an alternative to the process. I want to give you another thought. You're talking today about um, imposter syndrome and self-sabotage. Let's talk about bipolar disorder. That's also a modern psychology invention that they diagnosed prognosis, and they said you need 1, 2, 3. These are the steps you take. And the self-role, or SRA, in the self-role approach, we say there is no such thing as bipolar per se. Extreme one is different, but someone you can have a dialogue with, there is no such thing. What do we have? We have so many identities fighting to manifest themselves. If the core self, nafsiyu, is able to guide these selves to approach this manifestation stage, the center that we're talking through, if they're able to talk and allow them and guide them to come one at a time, there will be no confusion on the part of the individual. How do you manage this bipolar individual? Is by actually guiding these selves, these roles, these identities they have, and to come, they understand when to come one at a time. This way, you would diminish or minimize the stages of bipolar individual.
Fantastic. Jen?
Very interesting, Abe. I want to tag on to where you started out. That when, really, let's define an expert. Who is an expert? It is someone who made all the possible mistakes, within a certain field and grew through it and learned from it.
Yes.
And I think that's such an important message for us to take with us. And also, this book that you're sharing and that you're bringing to the world, I want to say that everyone has the ability to fly an airplane. I'm not a pilot, I started out as a social worker, but I will tell everyone, I have the ability to fly an airplane. It's only that I don't know the steps to get there. That is still unaware to me. That process of knowing myself, of taking in that information, but the ability to fly an airplane is within me. And I find it so intriguing that you're sharing a book that guides us through those steps of opening up to the possibilities of the abilities that we have within ourselves and knowing ourselves fully. So thank you.
You're most welcome. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Always a pleasure. We're going to catch up very soon.
You should have something in the mail today or tomorrow. I sent you the compassionate leadership theory. Please let me know when you receive it.
I will, my dear friend. Good to see you.
Same here. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to climb a mountain, so to speak, a pine mountain. My dear friend and brother from another mother, quite an interesting fellow. We've done a few gigs ourselves together, Mr. Dave Summers. Dave, wonderful to see you, my friend.
Hey, good to see you too as well. The energy is really, really good on this program. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
That's so good to hear, Dave. Welcome.
Hi, Jenny.
Dave, you do a lot of video gigs. Yes, that's true. But you also work with senior and chief executives. Mm-hmm. And, like we've been talking this whole program, the self-sabotage and imposter syndrome is a common word that's not spoken out loud, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts?
Just really, really quick, and I'll keep my comments short, is I work with a lot of people who I think COVID forced a lot of people in front of cameras who had no experience, professional experience, or even semi-professional experience in front of cameras. And it wasn't just little Skype calls to your boss or to your coworkers or to your grandchildren. It was presenting to, in some cases, thousands of people virtually. And some of the challenges that I've seen, that I've helped some of my clients through, is getting them comfortable in front of the camera, getting them comfortable telling their stories. And I think a lot of them were really were frightened. I mean, just crazy rich people who were successful in life, who for the very first time had to park themselves in front of a webcam, of all things, or if they were really wealthy, they got some kind of video crew, which in my mind made it even more difficult because it put more people in the room. And they had to connect. And Terry, you and I talked about this in the past. You had to develop some type of connection through the camera, through the stories you told, through what you were sharing. So my challenge with a lot of people, it's getting easier now, thank goodness, but it's just getting them comfortable with, and I have a love-hate relationship with this word, but if you approach it the right way, it's always your ally, and that's authenticity. Be authentic, you know? And I heard a previous guest talk about the words and the language you use. Make sure that when you are, you know, talking on camera to perhaps 1,000 people or 100 people or 20 or 10 people, that the words you are using are your words. You know, if there's a product or a service offering or a book you're trying to sell or a problem you're trying to solve, make sure the words are yours, not somebody else's. And the other thing I would offer up is don't read a script unless you're a professional voiceover actor or Academy or Emmy award-winning actor or whatever. Don't read a script. People can see your eyes moving. You know, don't do that. Work off of an outline, work off of bullet points, work off the words you know and that you trust and the points you want to make. Now, everything else around those words and those concepts is almost many times more important than the words themselves. That's what I call kind of conversational spackle. But and some people might say it's filler, but it's you. It's how you talk to people. It's how you relate to people. It's your mannerisms, your expressions, your smiles, your weird one eyebrow up, one eyebrow down thing. And that helps people get over the hump of, you know, who am I? Am I comfortable in my own skin in front of a camera? And I think, again, this COVID thing, this appearing in front of a camera thing has really pushed a lot of people into the imposter space because they're just very dreadfully fearful of looking stupid, looking silly, looking ill-prepared, uncomfortable. And so much credibility, especially over the past 4 or 5 years, is being derived from that camera, like for better or for worse, you know? And I jokingly say I have a face for radio. You know, a lot of people have to just become more comfortable even recording their own voice. And the good news is just you can learn this, okay? Just practice. Just, you know, take out your phone, and this is going to sound really bizarre, but just record yourself, you know, walking and talking and being comfortable and sharing an idea, and then review those, you know, and gauge yourself on how natural that conversation feels, okay? I think that's probably one of the most important bits of advice I can offer. And the last thing I find that helps me personally with imposter syndrome is I read an unbelievable amount of biographies of all different kinds of people, you know, science, technology, entertainment, political, whatever. I read biographies. I'll read a lot of other stuff, biographies, and I try to find those moments in those people's lives, because invariably there is that moment where they have to cross that shadow line. You know what I mean? They have to move through the doorway or through the window into becoming something else. And it's nobody's story is the same. They always have these little things they did or people they worked with or challenges they faced that got them through this. And that just arms you with, you know, sort of a database of information about how other people overcame or how they connected or how they transitioned and evolved. Anyhow, I could go on, but I just want to keep it to those sort of tactical, practical things.
Beautiful too.
Thank you, Dave. So much to take with us. And what comes to me is that, you know, the people that have been truly approachable to me and relatable, they were never perfect. Perfect is scary. It doesn't exist. So when people are themselves and I see them having things stuck in their teeth, it's like, oh, I found myself having that as well. Like, I'm so relieved. We're all human. Yes, exactly. Let's show it off.
Oh, all right, give me a second. I know.
Bridge between us. And it relaxes us and it makes us feel free and accepted, and that I get to be me. You know, I'm pouring from the same well. If I'm standing at the line of the supermarket, or I'm talking to you, or I'm in the board meeting, it's me. And that is actually, you know, people know what's coming. There are no surprises, you know, it's safe. So thank you. Such good pointers. Thank
Sure.
you.
Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So wonderful to see you and talk to you, my friend. We got to do another gig. We have so much fun when we do them. And you know, one thing that we've talked about, the two of us, many times, is the fact of having to get in front of a camera. You know, and looking back at, you know, I have over 500 videos out there. You probably have 10,000, but some of those early ones were pretty nasty, real
Pretty
scary
rough.
stuff.
Pretty rough.
You know,
Yes,
a lot
exactly.
of my first videos I did over and over and over and over again, so that they even made sense. And then I try them out. You know, so yeah, I get that. We have one more guest, my dear friend, and thank you again for stopping in and being with us. I love you, man. Take care. Well, I met this next person. She was a guest on a program, a live that a friend of hers and fellow colleague was co-hosting with me, and she's just another one of those people that you just click with, and yeah, that's it. There's that connection, and that's the way it is. We think alike. We do that marketing thing in our minds and stuff. And then what does she do? She goes out and finds and founds an AI company, and she's incredible. And here she comes, Eugenia Jordan. Welcome, my dear friend. Wonderful to see you.
Wonderful to see you too. Thank you so much for having me, Jenny and Ambassador Terry.
So good to meet
Our
you.
pleasure. Our pleasure. You know, you have quite a story of coming to the West, and you know, you're coming up and getting settled in the States, and your mindset, your story is an incredible one. I wish I had about an hour for you to tell it. But the truth of the matter is, you've got a lot of background, and working in marketing, you hear a lot of the famous self-sabotage, imposter syndrome words, which are common behind the scenes, but not spoken out loud. Perhaps you got something for us.
I enjoyed listening to all other speakers, so I'm gonna offer a different perspective. We talked about other people talked about different strategies, different books. So to me, when we talk about self-sabotage or imposter syndrome, I always ask a question: who this me being small is going to benefit? If it's not going to benefit me, if it's going to put me behind, if it's not going to help me achieve my goals, then I'm not doing it. And I understand we all, had painful childhoods. I grew up in communist Russia, and sometimes, we had nothing to eat. Single mother household. I was in a domestic violence situation. So, but if I go back to all those traumatic experiences and I justify all the imposter syndrome or sabotaging myself, then who wins? No one. So, and what I loved, other people shared some of their favorite books. I wrote a couple of mine, and it's Dr. Maltz. He was a plastic surgeon, and he wrote a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. And he was a plastic surgeon, wrote the book in the 50s or 60s, because what he noticed is people came to him and said, "Doctor, I feel so bad about myself. My nose is this, or I have wrinkles. Help me look better." And he would make them look better. He will fix this nose. He would give them a facelift. And what he noticed is, for many of his patients, their attitude did not change because it was inside. They were programmed to feel bad about themselves. It was not the nose. It was not the wrinkles. It was what was inside. And he created this theory of psycho-cybernetics, We can reprogram ourselves. We can call our past successful experiences when we feel a little bit uncertain. But if we feel bad about ourselves, if we say, "Oh, you know what? I cannot do this. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not going to do a video," then we're not going to do a video. So, and I'm going to give an example because I just founded an AI company, and there was a pitch competition here where I live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And by the way, it's 67 beautiful degrees here today. So, and I was nervous because I joined the program late. They were already practicing for 4 weeks, but it was the first one and I needed to get in. And I was nervous and I realized something was blocking me. And then I started pulling on the past experiences. I did keynotes before. I spoke in front of thousands of people. Why was I so afraid? Because it was something new. So once I realized what was blocking me, then I said, okay, how did I get to speaking in front of 1,000 people or doing keynotes? By practicing. And that's what I did. I practiced in front of the mirror. I practiced with my husband. I practiced everywhere. And that's what Dr. Maltz in psycho-cybernetics suggests. You recall that experience, which to me was keynotes that I was doing, and then you practice the new experience. And I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And even on the day of the pitch, I was really nervous. And we did practice and it was not good. And then I sat down, I relaxed myself and I said, it's your choice. It's either you're going to play small and say, oh my God, I never done it before. Or you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to go out there and kill it. Third place, the only Myrtle Beach company that got placed in that competition, because I did not allow myself to sabotage myself. I did not allow myself to play small because it was not benefiting anyone.
Love that story, Eugenia. And what I hear is that as you were practicing doing, you were also practicing being. I am that one. I have that voice. You know, my voice is to be heard. I am the one who stands on stage and people listen to me and it makes a difference. And so it becomes that shift of identity or that evolution of identity. And it's so powerful. And claiming that space is never claiming anyone else's space. It's never in competition. It's your space. And if you had not taken that step, we would have been missing out on you. So I'm so grateful to have you here. And thank you for sharing that journey with us.
I knew you would have a very interesting take, and I was right. You know, it's so easy to dismiss ourselves. So who's there to pick us up? No one, unless we get lucky and somebody overhears us, but they can't overhear us if we're talking to ourselves. And, you know, you either learn in life or you learn in life. And like you, very early on, when I started speaking on stage, it was like, I'm doing this, you know. People ask me, why don't you use the teleprompter and stuff like that? I said, because I spend too much time reading it and not enough time talking about it. And I was very fortunate to spend some time, about 3 hours. We were laid over at an airport between speaking gigs a long time ago with a international speaker. And so we had a couple of beers and we talked about speaking, you know. And I always remembered what that guy said to me. He says, you got the face and the voice people like to watch and hear. Use it. And just be you. You know, my wife tells me all the time, just you be you, boo. And that's really all it is. Because if you want to relate to somebody, you want to relate to who they are, not what they are. And it's so important. And the fact that you got up there and killed it did not surprise me, does not surprise me. You know, you got to do your propers, as they say in some circles, on the stage as a CMO. You know, you get to cut it up and have some fun, and you can get out of the norm, away from the line, because we're expected as marketers to kind of sway the line a little bit. So it makes it a little easier for us than, say, a medical doctor who's got to talk about ABC. It's a little more hard, a little more difficult. Lovely to see you, my dear friend. I'm glad that you didn't get caught up in those fires in eastern North Carolina. Not nasty. And so thanks again for coming, and thanks for hanging in there. I noticed you got in the green room quite early on, so it took a lot to keep you there. So thank you again. I just can't talk enough about you, Eugenia. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, Jenny and Ambassador Terry. And Linda, thank you for all the wonderful comments. I enjoy reading them.
She can hear you. Bye for now. Well, it's just the two of us, as they say. Wow, wow, wow. Everything I thought it would be, and a whole lot more. Just incredible.
Such values. I want to share everything with my clients that what was shared here today. And I'm reminded that, you know, I get to put on, if it's putting on that suit or putting on that makeup or getting into those shoes, it's not to cover anything up. No emotions of unworthiness. It's actually, you know, enhancing the belief that is already there, that I have a space to fill and a voice to be heard, and I got this. How about you, Terry?
Absolutely. I totally agree. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm bringing with me because I learn everything every day, no matter what it is. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. We appreciate you. And leave your comments. Come visit us.